And then, whoops. Is it recording?
It's the upper left-hand corners.
It usually says this meeting's recording, so let me try to make sure I have the right one. I want to record it on the cloud. I'm just
Looks like it is.
on the cloud? No. I'm sure you want to know. Okay, great. Then we're, I just set it up. Right. All right then.
Is Rick Pope coming?
No, I think this is just to set a hearing date
Oh, okay.
and just give you a little tidbit about it. Let's not have an emergency, not get the 60 days done.
Well, I think we can start the meeting, yeah?
Yeah.
No reason to wait until exactly 7.
It's
Um,
7.
Oh, good. And then let's add to our agenda, Arian, one of these.
ARION. And last name, do you need last name?
Sure.
It's THIBOUMERY. It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Okay, Erin. Add you to our agenda. We also have to review and approve the meeting minutes from August 14th. And the other item is to discuss a hearing for Rick Pope and Heather for a minor subdivision on Brook Road. And do we want to also add? We also have to set a hearing. Well, we set the 24th hearings.
Right.
So do we want to discuss any details of that? No.
No, I think we have to wait for evidence. of this.
Well, I was thinking maybe we want to be a little more prepared, because we have like the select board meeting, and so let's just put it on there.
Okay.
Discuss.
Well, you can actually report, however, it is report of select board meeting. Did you go to select board meeting on Monday?
I missed it. By the time I got in, they were done. I was canning.
Fast.
Never mind.
Sorry, but I do think we need to discuss the 24th hearing, just so that we feel prepared,
Okay.
okay? Okay, do we want to start with Arian since he's here, and then we can approve minutes after, is that what we did?
That's all
All
right.
right, so,
Well, that's generous of you, thank you.
sure,
I'm wondering if I could put like a map up on your screen, is this the normal select board hearing? If I join it,
yeah,
like it's
yes,
the
it
same
is,
Zoom meeting.
yeah,
going
it
to
is,
select board
to say
meeting.
yes.
Alright, so bear with me, and
Do I have to share, or will it just?
I think it will allow me to share, just starting to log into that select.
It's nice to see you in person.
I know, it's nice to see you in person, it's pretty cool.
Add Kaylee Pope to the who's here.
Oh, who's taking minutes?
I know that.
We need a minute taker. Oh, actually, Kristen will take,
Yes.
Kristen will make our
Yeah.
minutes, so
We have another attendee.
Kyle,
Kaylee.
Kaylee has joined our meeting. Hi, Kaylee.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm just mostly just listening.
Very good, fine.
Oh,
No, we can't
you're muted. All right, so Erin, we,
I was just
you
saying,
will-
It's showing up with one button, so we will ignore that.
Mhm.
Um. Oh, it says host is disabled sharing.
okay, let me do.
Probably don't need that chair.
No.
Maybe someday somebody will join DRB and they can sit there.
That's not what I want. Laptop's not here. One participant, only one participant. He said maybe multiple participants can share. Cause it's click one participant can share at a time, advanced sharing options.
Maybe it still says host is disabled sharing. I'm sorry, I'm not a Zoom guru.
Host only, okay, here we
There
go.
you go.
I'm gonna do. Who can start sharing when someone else is sharing, host only, how's that?
Good.
Who can start sharing? Okay, is that, can you share now?
Let's try it. Great. Awesome. So, just to give a little bit of background, this land, is currently owned by, Bram Tobin and his wife Erica DaCosta, who I'm sure everybody knows Bram and probably most people know Erica. They've owned it for some time, they've considered some development of this. I know I first talked to Bram about, doing some housing up on this land 4 years ago. I know many other people have had, this is not an original idea, but it's an idea that's kind of been on the shelf that seemed incredibly timely at this moment. As some of you may be aware, I am the volunteer buyout coordinator for the FEMA buyouts in town. And so I have a pretty good sense of the amount of properties that are going to be going away. And we currently have over 25 buildings on the list of interest. And it's likely that we have at least another 5. Whether all of those go through remains to be determined. There's likely that some of those will drop out, but we are talking about a pretty good amount of structures. That impacts us in many ways, housing being the obvious one, and having people live in that housing, the sense of community that we have in Plainfield as we potentially lose some families, and also the tax base. We are looking at something like if all of those properties were to go off of the grand list and the tax rolls, we're looking at about a 10% loss of our tax base in this town, which means everybody's tax bills is 10% higher. So there are a lot of reasons why finding other areas to put housing in Plainfield is very appealing. We are additionally blessed to be a town where people actually want to live. And so as a point in fact, I'm sure you all are familiar, there's actually 3 people currently building new structures in the village right now. There's 2 on Creamery and there's 1 on Hudson. And so given that context, the idea that we could, as a town, develop into buildable lots this portion of land, which is relatively flat, immediately accessible to the village, and well suited for this kind of development. I don't know if this is, I'm gonna step in front of this camera right here, and hopefully I can kind of do this sort of thing like the weatherman. So the current consideration is essentially the land is currently divided into 3 parcels, A, B, and C, as they're kind of listed here. The thinking is to acquire at least one of these, probably 2, with an option to buy the other one. The town would acquire these, would subdivide the land with, subject to your all's review and uncovering exactly what that process would look like is one of my goals for the conversation tonight. And initially put approximately 30 buildable lots on the land. And with room for possible further development, that would also, there's a steering committee of approximately 10 people. I can tell you all who's on that committee, but I won't bore you with the list of names right now. But we do have Dan Mingus as a select board member, and we do have Will Colgan as the planning board chair, who are both part of that committee. So folks you guys probably know. Looking at 30 buildable lots with services and roads put in by the town. And the goal of the project is to make this a cost neutral project for the town. So what that means is that we do expect to get some grant funding. What sources that for the infrastructure aspects of this, but the process of acquiring the land, which I think Bram and Eric are willing to sell at a reasonable price, but that's not free. Will cost some money. However, at the end of the process, we have lots to sell that have a real commercial value. And the committee has many questions about how do we preferentially sell those lots to people who are possibly displaced or people who already live in town. And I think there are some mechanisms to look at that. There's a ton of details that we haven't ironed out yet, but the core sort of categories of approximately 30 buildable lots, because we're looking at possibly losing about 30, and that's kind of where that number comes from. With additional room for some expansion later, but we probably want to have all those lots sold before we even open up some, and whether that's 5 or 25 years from now, who knows? And with roads, water and sewer and their other utilities. The road entrances that are being contemplated, there, one, we know from a public safety standpoint, having an in and an out, that's not a cul-de-sac, is a good idea. There's some really sort of threshold parameters that we already have established. And so there are really only 2 locations that seem viable. One of them is very clearly off of East Hill Road here. And Bram and Erica do actually have an easement through this parcel that they would be willing to offer even if the parcel is not acquired immediately. Because it seems like at this point, there's preference to building here closer to the village. And the other one is it does appear with a mild amount of grading that we could come right off Main Street in this area of land. It's a little bit lower right there. And then we come up the hill with a little bit of a zigzag. And it does look like the grades could possibly be made to work right there. It is not possible to come up directly from Greenery. It is way too steep. We have investigated that thoroughly. So that is, if we were to phase it, likely we would do something where we build initially just in this initial area with another road through that goes through there and then see what happens after that. There's a lot of interesting green space and walkways connecting to the village. There has been a number of people expressing interest of doing a footpath down this slope, perhaps with some stairs or something like that. So that was an additional way to be connected by the road to the village. So that is a very preliminary sketch. Our steering committee has met twice. The second meeting was actually earlier today, so it's a good day for town meetings today. I have done an initial review of some of the zoning ordinances. I did look at the subdivision ordinance, which essentially refers me to the planned unit development ordinance, which seems there's a lot to it, but it also did seem in essence, I would say, somewhat straightforward in the sense of the questions that you all would have. And I have some specific questions about that, but I'd like to open it up for you all to ask more questions. And some of the answers I can tell you right now are going to be we don't know. But
Can you tell me how many acres?
it's 20 acres approximately, that whole parcel. Maybe about
B.
I can tell you, I can pull up the exact plat.
Cause it's 3 parts, is it 3 lots or is
It
it?
is 3 lots. It is legally divided into 3 lots.
So when you're looking at. Beginning with lot B as.
Well, actually, we probably would begin, we don't know this for sure, but I would bet that we get A and B first, and then we get an option on C. I think that's the most likely outcome, but I'm just one person in the process.
And really, you'd still be maintaining a lot of open space, you'd be clustering houses like a village is your idea?
Yeah, the number, I would say, well, we are designing a public input process. And we expect to have not only public input via submission, but also some public meetings, and we're working through some of those details. We actually hope to have a question here go live on the internet again this week. But the overwhelming, I would say, aesthetic criteria of the people on the steering committee right now is make it feel like the village. And I think that's resonating with other people. There are some things that are challenging about that in the sense that while there are 2 people who said they're possibly interested in moving their houses up there that are currently in the floodplain, which would be great. We can't just instantly have 100-year-old houses up there. The other thing is while we are anticipating some budgeting for plantings and trees, getting 100-year-old trees up there in overnight is not possible. So to look and feel like the village is within some natural limitations that we do have.
I think maybe it has to do with the relationship of buildings to one another, yards, and the village is nice because people have small front yards, they have backyards where they can grow food and also have but also have neighbors, so I think.
Walkable neighborhood type feel like the village is definitely, it seems pretty much universal.
Definitely sidewalks.
So that is a real question that's come up, and I actually, it was one of those questions that was in the initial survey that we've been working on. And then in an effort to make that survey as short as possible, that question was punted to probably a future round.
Oops.
I think it's a good question. We do know that the roads initially will need to be dirt due to budgetary considerations, because we could spend $1 million on roads like so quick, it's amazing how much that costs. So I think there is, the idea of walkability is very important, whether we end up with sidewalks exactly in the design, I can't say definitively at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question though.
I think, I don't know how long you've lived in the town, but sidewalks were just a bone of contention in our village for 20 years or more, and then wasn't it Alice? No, it was Sarah Albert and Alice, I think, who finally found the money to help us
Yeah.
do all the red tape, so we actually had sidewalks in our village. We did.
I think they're a nice idea, I think some considerations might also come down to budget at the end of the day, but providing enough space to add them later.
Yes.
I feel like is probably an easy, relatively. easy
Designed
to do.
into the
Yeah.
initial plans, yeah, I'm sure you're gonna have lots of people, lots of opinions. Sewer is another one of my one concerns, because I know in the past. We've limited capacity, but these 30 houses, they're not all on water and sewer.
Well, so in this circumstance, they would, well, so the ones that we're losing are not all water and sewer, probably a dozen of them.
Okay.
And as a point of reference, I own what's left of the Hargrave. And so I have a pretty good understanding of some of the water and sewer issues in the village. But from a capacity standpoint, for this 30 initial development, I have been told by the operator, and I am on visiting the Water and Wastewater Commission meeting next week on the 17th. That we do have capacity for this at the plant and the wells, but we would need to obviously do line extensions. But it is very, we luckily, actually, we have water and sewer on both these roads right here. These folks are on municipal water and sewer right here, and so is everybody here. So there are mains that are already right there. So whether those mains, there will need to be engineering studies.
But there's capacity, that's really.
There's
my-
capacity at the plant, is there gonna be capacity for 200 years? I don't know, but for the immediate, what we're contemplating right now, there's capacity. Yeah.
So I went to the meeting up at Goddard that had, Goddard project. And
They're calling it the Great Wood, that's
right, but it was set up, my friend Pat Mullen, she's working with Barry in this area of how to deal with housing that's in a floodplain and moving it to another place similar to this. The only thing that was brought up during that period of time around capacity was, what is the, do we need to upgrade our current system? Because it's.
water and sewer system.
Yeah, like the plant, because it's in the
Flood.
floodplain. And so there are some concerns that have been brought up about that maybe we should be putting into upgrade and move our plant. So when we're thinking about this, we also need to think about for future growth too, so.
I think the Water and Wastewater Commission is looking at some of those issues, and I think, it's a very good point. And I think if my understanding is that once they feel more comfortable about the trajectory, they're looking at collapsing users at this, and a collapsing budget, because the Heartbreak, for example, had 8 allocations. And we're not paying water and sewer bills anymore because, every service is cut off to the remainder of that building right now. And I formally gave up those allocations because there's no purpose in keeping it paid for, it's expensive. And so I think they have an immediate concern of sort of how they handle the next 6 months or year. And then after that, I understand, if we build houses up here tomorrow, I think they'd be ecstatic, so. All that is to say, I totally agree with you, I think, and I do know from talking with Josh Pitts and Mary, that these things are being considered.
Okay, thank you.
And did you say that there's also potentially like public spaces that are being considered for the development?
I think that the likely, there's great interest in having some park/wooded area as well. The lands in parcel A, and particularly those slopes, and the idea of having some trails and leaving some established woods that are there is both logical and appealing. How we do a layout for some final green spaces in the town, there's a stone wall that essentially runs down this part right here, that's an old stone wall
Yeah.
between those parcels. And so that is really sort of the more granular aspects of the design that will probably emerge over time, but I know that consideration is definitely on everyone's mind.
I'm also wondering about, and this isn't in the plan yet, but connection to Coburn Road. So there's an other way out for Coburn Road since hillside falls down frequently. So, and the town garage.
You mean,
Cam,
Cameron Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
Cameron.
yes, that is, well, we have talked about that, I have heard that from others on the select board and Graham as well. That would have to go probably through Dale Bartlett's land.
Right.
And we would need to have him be okay with that.
Yeah.
And as I understand, that may be challenging and we'll have to see how that ends out in the conversation, but I think, the more things that are connected. Gosh, we all know that section of the Brook Road that's in that lower area there is probably the first to go, and it's probably always gonna be the first to go, so.
But it's
there-
necessary.
Yeah, we gotta have some way that those houses to get out, so I totally agree, that would be a nice thing to have, it would make sense to incorporate it into this, so the way the steering committee, because we did talk about this, that. We would love to have it as part of the plan, but we also have to acknowledge that it doesn't happen, we need to keep moving forward because we don't have control over that and it doesn't stop us if it doesn't happen. That was kind of how it's put today. Yeah.
So the other thing is we're functioning under 2011 zoning regs, and there is zoning regs that the select board, the planning commission had worked on and previously the DRB, and they haven't been adopted and voted on, and the planning commission was trying to bring that to public hearing, and then it didn't happen, and I had spoken to the DRB that we should all look at these new zoning regs and make a recommendation to the select board that they should adopt them as interim zoning regs, because it shrinks the lot size of village lots, and that might also influence your planning if you could, I love the idea of PUD that's outside of the, 2 acre or quarter acre, is it quarter acre?
it's quarter acre
Current.
for on public.
Water sewer.
Yes,
I'm sorry, say that again?
it's a quarter acre on public
Is that-
water and sewer.
Is that the existing or the?
Well, that's the
proposed
existing one.
Is a quarter, and the proposed one is shorter, smaller, isn't it?
I don't.
The proposed is down to 1/8.
Yes.
As small as 1/8 without a variance.
Right, so
Yeah.
I mean, you can come for a PUD, which is great, because then you can actually design something that's not cut up into little squares. If, something maybe a little more creative.
So, just to make sure, just to say that back to make sure I'm understanding right, if we did have some lots, if Will has expressed an interest to me personally as well of getting that out there, because he said, gosh, we've been working on this a long time and we'd really like to get it out there.
Right,
But we're not gonna break ground on this tomorrow, hopefully there'll be one thing that leads to the next, but I guess it is a question if some lots. Let's say for whatever reason are somewhat irregular or don't quite pan out exactly right, within that PUD plan, we can request variances for things like that, is that right?
PUDs don't necessarily need, they're different structures, it's not, you don't break things into subdivided lots, it's one lot with multiple dwellings. But it is limited to zoning, so if you have smaller lot zoning, that actually means that you could have more dense housing.
Interesting, so you're saying.
At least that's my understanding.
The PUD is not but it's not subdivided, it is a subdivision.
We
okay?
use subdivision, no, we don't, a lot is not subdivided with a PUD, it remains a single lot with multiple dwellings on it.
But could B, for instance, be the whole thing, be a PUD?
But probably my current understanding is of a PUD, because we have one in East Montpelier, is that Okay, if it's 3 acre subdivision. Rules, then you, a PUD gives you a quarter more, so you could have 4 or something like that.
Gotcha, okay, well, so I guess I have a question, because it seems to me that a logical way from the standpoint of selling these as marketable lots. Would be to have them to offer somebody
A lot,
a lot, that's with a warranty deed
Right.
that says this
Yeah.
is all yours.
much easier, we had to
Yeah.
redo all our documents and it was a condo structure we created
Yeah.
instead, so it's much more like a condo structure if you. And we have
The PUD.
individual separate houses on ours, so but we're using the state condominium documents in terms of making it deeded and title ready and more.
Gotcha, so then, that's a really good point to know, because that is super important, and I hadn't thought that. If the goal were to make these subdivided lots, what would that process be then?
That's a major subdivision.
It's a major subdivision.
Okay,
And right now, I think in the zoning regs. You can only do 10 a year.
Right, so that's another reason to consider, and because it's a large lot and you would do dense also the other thing with subdivisions is the goal, with PUDs is the goal is to have open lands, remain open lands. And then have a building envelope with clustered housing and clustered structure to make it, so part of the goal was to keep lands, working lands or open lands.
okay, I am looking at the, just make sure I'm the right date here, if I have the regulations pulled up. These are the 2011, right, that's the ones we're currently working under, and if I go to. The page 16.
I don't have them in front of me, I didn't bring them, but I can.
I have,
General regulation, subdivision certification regulation for subdivisions, page 16.
We use subdivision regulations when we make PUD because we have no other parameters created in state statute, I think.
you want me to look up PUD?
Well, the PUD is in this current is in the zoning regulations and subdivisions in the subdivision regulations. I'm trying to think of where there's some sort of.
Planned unit developments according to, because lot size and density, lot sizes and densities in the zoning regulations are minimum standard. Densities may be increased only for planned residential developments and planned unit developments according to the zoning.
So if our intention would be to subdivide the lots as a legal deeded subdivision, what is the best avenue?
All subdivisions not classified as. Okay, so if it's 4 more lots, including all lots created from a single parcel within the past 10 years, any size subdivision which requires an installation of public improvements in any plan.
That's the definition.
That's the definition, that's not.
One more?
Yeah, well, actually, I think Karen has the limits. What's the
So
definition?
section 3.12 subdivision certification and regulations of large subdivision. Number 2, a contiguous parcel of land in the town of Penfield may be subdivided into no more than 4 lots in any 12-month period unless it's been done in conjunction with planned unit development. Approved by the DRB in accordance with Article 4 of this regulation.
So there you go, you would subdivide, so what you could do. That complicates things in our current regulations.
And let me just ask a question, does that mean that if you submit the subdivision plan along with a planned unit development, that then the parcels can be legally divided, or I feel a little confused.
What I'm hearing is that single parcel of land B can only be subdivided into 4 parcels within what period of time?
10 years.
12 months.
12 months?
So every year they could go back and make 4 more lots?
But it does say unless done in conjunction with the planned unit development
Right.
approved by the development review board.
Right, so therefore you would need to use the PUD to do what you're talking about versus having.
But then they would still be legally dividable. Is that?
The PUD doesn't you could have 4 lot, I don't know, that's what we might have to
Okay,
do.
so we have
further
we have
research
one
for.
PUD that's through zoning in the town of Plainfield. It's at the top of Maxfield or and it's 10 acres, and they divided it into. Two places, they have 2 houses on it, right, but they never did building envelopes. And 5 acres had to be conserved. So you can sell the house. Right, in this particular situation, you can sell the house, but it has to be part of the PUD. If you do a PUD which becomes a condominium association, you can sell the house and the parcel of land that's underneath.
Limited common elements, that's what you do, so
Yeah.
that's what we've done in East Montpelier.
But why does this say then in this section, the one you just
In
read?
conjunction with a PUD,
Yeah, why would it say that you can do it in, it says you can do it into no more than 4 unless you do it in conjunction with a PUD.
Right.
and that's existing rules, because it's the same in the
I
proposal.
don't know, but what I'm just saying is, you could divide B into 4 lots,
Yeah,
okay? But you can't divide B through subdivision. Into 30 lots or
okay.
5 lots.
Well, would there, I mean, if there were. So is that to say that under the current regulations, as we're looking at them right now, there is no way of actually doing this?
You can do a PUD.
Well, but the PUD I don't think gets us to, you know.
What your goal is,
I think we're gonna have a real hard time selling the lots if they're not legal lots, to put it sort of very bluntly,
Can you develop it as a PUD and then over time subdivide it? The PUD parcels, or is that not?
I don't know, I think, again, my understanding, and I think we're gonna have to do some research, is that the intention of a planned unit development or a planned residential unit was to keep the land undivided
Yeah,
and to create clustered housing and keeps land open.
yeah,
So, the way we worked it in East Montpelier is we've got 10 acres and 4 units. And we've had to redo our documents, our operating agreement and declaration so that it would meet title ready, which was the building and the limited common area around the building was deedable, transferable,
Yeah.
and insurable.
okay, I mean, I just put this up, this is the 2011 zoning map. And that area, the yellow area is, I'm just gonna go.
Village.
Is village district, and so this area is so it seems.
We should be able to break it up
You
and
should, this
quarter
tells me that, why would we draw it yellow if we didn't wanna break it up into 1/4 acre lots?
Well,
I think that our zoning, this is the frustration I have, zoning regs don't meet the needs of, or don't fit neatly into an order, and so that's why we have variances.
So would it be possible, I mean, obviously, and I, you know, I don't wanna encumber you guys too much, but I think
That's
I
what
would
we're
just
here for.
okay, I guess my question is really like. You know, it seems sort of critical to make this move forward, that we have some way of actually doing this, and whether
Right.
that's ultimately some kind of special variance process or
Yeah.
whatever, I mean, we can. I think, being that it is a public process that has at least formally initial. Please go forward and develop this plan from the select board, I think, and frankly, a lot of interesting people, given the losses that we're facing. You know, I'm sure we can jump through a lot of hoops to get this done.
Yeah,
The question is just what is the process?
yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think it's gonna take a little more sleuthing and reading specifically what's allowed, and
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense to do a PUD because that's non-dividing into lots, and it seems to ask for a variance to and move, you know, is it 1/4 acre right now and it goes to an 1/8? Like you'd have to determine, do you want 1/8 acre lots or 1/4 acre lots?
I mean, it's.
The main thing is, can you get a variance to do more than 4
Yeah.
elements? I mean, that's the main thing, and then, I mean, is that, I actually don't know, because that's in the regulations, can you get a variance? I mean, that's the
Well, I mean,
point of
that's a-
variance, right?
and this is one of the reasons why it's been taking so long, because. Cannabis came up and then we added cannabis language and then blah, 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 blah. And no one really likes we call spot zoning.
Yeah,
It's when you add something into the regulations to do something.
yeah,
But I also think that the same thing is happening with Goddard, because Goddard is rural residential, which also creates another problem for having commercial out there. So there's a lot of stuff that really needs to be taken into consideration, that when we were doing the zoning for the last forever.
yeah.
We didn't plan on having a flood. Zoning regulations didn't really plan on that large parcel that you're talking about. I mean, they're treating
Right
it,
next to the
right,
village.
they're treating it like it's a 5 acre lot place outside of the village, and so. That, that's one of the concerns, we're a half horse town. Right, we only have half of this acres of other towns, and our corner of our town is right.
It's right on the Marshfield line. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a bunch of people who live in Marshfield, they say they get their mail delivered to Plainfield and.
Right, so I think that there's the consideration back. I always thought it was interesting the village went up that high, I'm also interested why rural resident goes all the way up to, that road too, but. I mean, I don't think when we did the zoning, we thought about how to develop that parcel of land
Yeah, so.
as part of a village.
I mean, I would say Will Colgan had said that he thought it would be a PUD and a subdivision, but I don't totally understand how those interface, and it seems like there's some questions around that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, one idea would be a subdivision where you subdivided off the area that you wanted to make into village lots. And you could, well, that's not a PUD. A PUD is keeping the land contiguous and then.
But what you're saying is, they could say, we could subdivide off 10 acres. Would be, a minor subdivision,
Right,
and then you would come in for a PUD for that particular.
No,
area.
no, you could subdivide and that one area could stay open lands and or it would be undeveloped and if a PUD is not gonna take. He doesn't want a PUD, he wants individual lots.
That's true, I agree, but
So you can't do that, a PUD doesn't do individual lots,
So do
only
we-
subdivision does, that's what a
so
subdivision does.
let's go home and read our things and figure out two things, how to make Goddard being the village district and how to get this to be able to be subdivided.
My question is, do we as the development review board have authority to issue that type of variance?
I have
Yes,
to read.
well, that's what we'd have to ask our lawyer.
You said yes.
I would yes, if you brought
This meeting's recorded.
an interested person. Yeah, it doesn't say it in here. Can you find the definition of where it's like, we're an 8.7 variance, but it doesn't give us the definition of the variance.
The problem is the landowner is creating the problem. You can't issue a variance if the landowner is creating the problem.
Yeah,
Oh, no, we go for variance if what they want doesn't fit in the current zoning.
In a
regs.
PUD, but not necessary. This is on the next conversation, but typically speaking, a variance and a variance. If you look at all the variances for just like a subdivision or something like that, that has to do with waste and water and stuff like that. Does it have to do with lot size? We can discuss that on our next project. But if we're talking straight variance, the problem can't be created by the owner. You can't put the house here because you want a better view when it will fit down here.
If the town is the owner, does that matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it does, but to me, it does seem like that, and this is kind of different than those, where the point is they wanna do more, they wanna subdivide it more than they're allowed to. I don't see why that wouldn't be okay to be considered a variance.
Especially if it meets the minimum lot
This is-
size of the village.
There's no way to get 30 individual lots unless you divide it into 30. There's no, I see no other way.
But
Yeah.
the desire to have the 30 lots is created by the owner.
Which,
yeah,
It's
So
also-
that's the question, I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate, do I think it's okay to have 30 lots up there? Absolutely.
Well, somebody, when they published that zoning map, could surely thought the same thing, or they wouldn't have painted it out.
So we just have to figure out how to navigate the.
You're thinking more about. This map makes no sense, it happens to be who's on the planning commission and who owns what when. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm being very, very blunt about this, because I own 75 acres. Who have been in 2-acre zoning, rural residential. 75 acres, then became only a 75-acre lot because. It isn't accessed by road, and then zoning changed again, and now I can have a right of way, and it can be 5-acre lots. So that's just one parcel of land
Yeah,
that has changed
yeah,
over time, so. Who decided that rural residential goes that far up, and if you're in that middle, like, it does, the
yeah,
map doesn't make sense.
I gotcha. Well, so I mean, I guess, you know, up to the pleasure of this board, you know, we kind of understand what we wanna do, and we're willing to do anything to
Yes.
get there.
Okay.
Let us know what, you know, let us know, we'll say jump, we wanna know how high.
Well, you know, I think that
Yeah.
because it's a community project to benefit the community, it would be beholden that the community says yes to this. And says, yeah, the town zoning is insufficient. And so we will make an exception.
Which is not a variance.
No, we can make an exception.
I mean, you know, I think the general consensus, and please jump in if I'm wrong, is that we are not opposed to seeing this developed
Right.
in the way that you're saying. So I do think that if we have it within our power to help make that happen, we're interested in doing so. Of course, it would be a public process, and you're already making a public process. If there is any sort of, there would have to be a hearing, then people would be allowed to, you know.
Yeah, the more, you're sort of like, the
Yes.
more public, the more people hear about this, the better.
So I don't know exactly how it's gonna go down. It sounds like we need to research that,
No,
but.
lawyers always have the answer either, but because lawyers look back at case history. And so, you know, if it's never been done before, then there's no evidence for doing it now, so we could set a precedence.
I will say that we have added those sections. Which I call it spot zoning, like you do it for a specific reason, right? And what it is it's the one about public lands.
Spot zoning is in zoning right?
So when Cross Trails of Vermont wanted the part that's on the right-hand side of Country Club Road. And there was a big fight with the guy who lived on the end of whatever that guy lived, whatever.
Yeah.
They did spot zoning that you could have an irregular 5-acre lot, and it's, I don't have the thing up right now. So this zoning was specifically written for that purpose.
Well, we can have spot zoning for the village, especially in such a
But
situation.
I'm just saying, like,
When
we
you can-
have historically in the town of Plainfield done what I call spot zoning, which is making a zoning regulations for a particular.
So who would make that? The planning commission
The
would
planning
make the
commission's-
road, and then the town, the select board would adopt it, or the town would adopt it.
Or become interim.
Interim zoning,
So you
so that's
definitely,
a Will Colgan
Alright.
responsibility
So-
right there.
Sure, I could, and I'm happy to follow up with him, like I said, he's on the steering committee, so.
That'd be
he's-
important.
He's in the loop.
Yeah, cause I think within the regulations in which we function under, there's not that option unless we.
Some special circumstance.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I guess one thing that is, you know, just to think the next step down the road, like I said, the initial intention would be to. Develop 30 lots, but if we're gonna put in new water and sewer mains, we probably, you know, putting the one size bigger pipe is not that much more money when you're digging big trenches. And so, you know, it would be good to make sure that we also have some avenue, like I said, whether that's 5 or 25 years later, that there's ability to expand some of that land, because it is very likely that the town will acquire a much larger portion than the town would use initially, with the hope of subdividing that later, potentially as a source of some revenue for some projects.
I have a question off subject. Any thought to 2-family homes?
Definitely, I think definitely the idea that we have,
or townhouses? or
I think there's some idea to have multi-family dwellings. That, you know, one of the, so we've been very clear that our scope of work, because we are we're like a citizen group in a certain regard, you know, we're not an official town body, we just are a group of people that are trying to develop a series of proposals that will then go to the select board for actual approval. And, you know, kind of get it all teed up. And, but there will be some actions which are buying the land and getting it developed into buildable lots for sale. That all happens under the auspices of the select board. But getting buildings on that land is still something our group is interested in, but that is not under the auspices of the select board. Because the resources required to actually build buildings is a whole order of magnitude larger. And so we have been speaking with some organizations like Down Street, who does low income apartment buildings. There is some concern that the Down Street projects are maybe too large for what we think of as playing field. And so we're in conversation with them about other options. We have a really lovely woman named Sandy Bitson, who's an architect and designer. You guys, she's been so great, and the Central Vermont Planning Commission sort of hooks up with her and just is doing a ton of work pro bono for us. And she's done a lot of research that really indicates that duplexes and triplexes might actually be more efficient from a dollar value of construction, because once you get into a larger apartment building with complicated fire suppression systems and sprinklers, you end up getting into these projects that cost, they give you about $600,000 per unit, and it's, wow, you could build a really nice home for $600,000. And even if it's paid for with somebody else's money, this is still kind of this crazy thing. And so how do we keep it sort of playing field scale, while also making sure that we have different options for different people? And, you know, some of that, you know, we can put restrictions. We have found out on the deeds for sale that these need to be owner occupied, you know, build a house within a certain number of years, and you live in it a certain number of years before it's actually available for sale. So there are those kinds of things that we can do to get them owner occupied, but obviously we also need rental housing, you know. Whether somebody can't afford to buy a home, or they may be just moving to town and need a place to stay temporarily, or there's a variety of reasons that people would not want to immediately own a piece of property. So how do we best design? It's tough to be all things to all people, but I think we are really trying to have a diversity of options in the final.
I have one more question in that line, which is, what about senior housing?
That is a great question, and I think the answer in many ways is somewhat similar. I would say as you know, so I am a volunteer coordinating this. I don't own this land, I get no financial benefit out of this process. I'm just like you folks. I'm showing up and doing work because this is what our community needs right now. And but I have thought that my father, who is 86, I have considered, like, gosh, you know, if this were to happen, and there's some development, you know, it'd be nicer to have him not living in my house, but living close by. I'm sure others can relate to that, but also in a place that is walking distance to the village. And you know, just has some of those aspects of walkability. And so I think inherent within being in a village setup, there are certainly some advantages to that. And how to best design for that, I'm not quite sure, but on a personal level, it's something that's relevant to me. Yeah.
I like the idea of mixed housing in a small area, like the village, you know, we have apartments, we have single family, double family units, we have like this, you know, the schoolhouse has got you know, assisted living housing, and it makes a nice village of diverse people.
Yes, I agree, and I think one of the ways that, you know, there's certain things that we can do, and that's, I mentioned some of those deed restrictions, there's other things where we will have to say, okay, this lot is for sale, and within the current regulations, if somebody buys it, they can build the house they want. But if we put different size lots out there next to each other, we sort of foster, it's like, well, if you have a small lot, you're not gonna put a huge house on it, especially because the current zoning regulations require certain setbacks.
Right.
And so there are certain ways that we think we can foster some of that diversity by having a diversity of lot sizes. But of course, once somebody buys it, there is a certain amount of control, we are just getting enough and we have to acknowledge that.
One thing I would suggest, if this all happens, that you need to put in a caveat that says that lots can't merge.
That is a great point. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what they did in the subdivision I have over Woodbury Lake is you can buy the lot next door.
But you can't,
You can't merge them and you can't change where the septic system goes or where the house goes.
that's a very
So
good
you
point,
can buy the next lot,
yeah,
but if you're gonna do the owner business, but if you make it so they can't merge, then people can't go in and buy full.
or lots
Lots
and roads,
merged together.
whatever, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
so that just, I thought that
That
this
is-
came to my mind about
That's
how to keep the lots the size that you would like.
That is
How the
excellent,
lots
I
merge.
just had in my myriad pages of notes.
Well, I'm glad you're taking this on. I know that over the decades it has been thought about doing it, and it just didn't seem that there was a way to do it.
Yeah, well, I think it's also, it's nice when there's a solution on the shelf waiting for a problem. Something like that. And it just seems like, if there's ever been a moment, now's the time, and we are so lucky that this is here, and that, honestly, that Graham and Erica are open to this, really is,
Right.
a very civic thing for them to be open to this. Yeah. So, just making a couple of notes, and so in terms of next steps, what's the best way for me to follow up with you all in terms of like, I can definitely have a little follow-up conversation, on phone or email with Will. But I would love to circle back around with you guys to think about what's the best way to make this possible.
Isn't it from our end that the select board has to adopt the regulations?
Well, after
I
we
think
make it
that's-
so it works.
Yeah, which way is the right path forward through the planning commission or the DRB, who's the best?
Well,
What's the best way
the
forward?
planning commission makes the rules.
Yeah.
We
The planning
interpret
commission's the
the
select board.
rules when they're not black and white.
Okay, so they're like the legislative body and you guys are like the judicial body or
Yeah,
something, so to
yeah.
speak.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
So you, Will would be the one with the planning commission to create some kind of spot zoning for this lot, these lots, this situation where the town, where, we wanna build multiple housings and divide a lot into small lots in the town, in the village
I-
district.
I don't actually think that this would be particularly spot zoning because we'd be doing it for like what we would like to see the whole
Village.
village area.
Right, so maybe what it would be is looking at the village area, what do we call that, village
District.
district, and changing the zoning limitations so that more lots can be subdivided out of a large lot.
And work quickly,
And
yeah.
that more than 4 lots can be subdivided out of a lot.
yeah,
To meet the, at least the minor, so like you said, if you want 30 and you want 4 acre to, 8 acre lots or something, 1 to 4, that's possible, it's not just 4.
You might be able to just take that language out of the zoning. and-
Right.
What,
It sounds like-
take what language?
I'm not sure the intent there, it sounds like the intent is to slow development.
Yeah,
Yes.
It was definitely because Barry's town was, all those old farm fields and orchards were being bought up and subdivided and turned
Yeah.
into these
Seems-
neighborhoods, and Plainfield was a little concerned about
Got it.
that.
So, I mean, it might be just the
Yeah, we want-
removal of that language.
Mhm. Yeah, now we want it.
Well, I think what we want is something more thoughtful. I think that we want something that's the citizens and the town wants, not big money developers come in and sell off, that's
yeah,
what I thought.
there's nobody who's getting rich off this one.
Right. So what, you're suggesting there that there's certain language taken out of the,
Right. I mean, I
the
think,
subdivision limits?
I mean,
I think should stay within like the village district, not,
well, no, I'm just saying that removal of. Or adding the word in village district, blah, 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 like it might not be that big a deal, you know what I'm saying, like I'm thinking, cause we're thinking on the fly right now.
yeah,
And so, I mean, one thing is like, in the village district, you can blah, blah, blah.
subdivisions
And then
don't
other-
have to be limited.
Yeah, and every,
Subdivision lots don't have to be limited to 4 lots.
right, or
It could be subdivided into what? This is
Yeah.
But it's up to the planning commission to do that.
yes,
Okay.
Right, which I'm
Not
on
us.
too, so.
she's on too, so she'll be here in this hour.
We'll be talking this on the 16th maybe, along with 3
Well,
others.
so that's, and then, so if that happens, then you would come to us
Mhm.
just with your subdivision plan, and if it meets all of the other parameters, you know, setbacks, water, sewer,
Yeah, because it would still be a major subdivision, which goes to the DRB,
right?
right? Yes.
Yeah.
I get that.
So I guess,
There's this Act 250 thing, but I don't know about it. And I was hoping we were gonna have it.
I know,
Happy we're having this conversation because I think there's two things happening. There's what Goddard is thinking and then what we're thinking, and that somehow all the.
yeah, they're very complimentary, the projects, I
Right,
don't.
right.
Well, and God, can't we also just change the zoning, the village zoning
We're
district
we're
to
discussing,
include Goddard
we're
Falls?
discussing that on the 16th, which
Okay,
is.
good. Okay, good.
Okay, well, so I will follow up with Will and then sort of, possibly loop you, Janice, in the conversation about how that goes, just to make sure we're sort of keeping
Yeah,
ideas
That
all.
sounds good.
If that sounds okay?
Sure.
I'm happy to include others, but maybe you start with you or, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
you can relay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
great, so.
so.
That sounds like a great next step to me. I'll reach out to Will and we'll keep the conversation going.
Thank you for your leadership on
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
thank you guys. It's, yeah, it feels like a good project. I think we have some ambitious goals of possibly. The committee has stated they would love to start putting infrastructure in the ground next summer. And if possible, houses the following year. That's, we have this, we have a construction season here in Vermont, so it's like if you miss it 1 year, then it's the next year. So we said, look, let's plan this to see if we can hit these goals, because if we miss a window, we really get set back by a few months, so
And people need housing.
and people need housing. I mean, that's it will never be fast enough, but let's see what we can do. Yeah, great, thank you all very much, and thanks.
We'll see you again.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
to
Thank
meet
you.
you all in person.
Your
Yeah.
substantial damage, I'm putting in the mail tomorrow morning.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, have a good evening. Yeah, take care.
Sorry. Yeah, you can.
Bye.
Well, so we should have Kaylee,
Oh, no.
we should ask Kaylee next, right, to speak to her regards, because she's here.
Yeah,
Kaylee, hi.
Right.
Hello, can you hear me now?
oh, we can't hear you.
I'm unmuted. Is your speaker not on?
Can't hear you.
Yes, it looks like it's unmuted, but for some reason we can't hear you.
Oh, hmm. That is strange. I think it might
We'll
be,
see if there's anything on this end I can do.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, could it be the volume?
Oh, we might, well, that's true, could be the volume. Do that. Do you know where I would find volumes participant meeting?
There's one on here.
Her mic.
There we go.
Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Try now.
Can you hear me now? Or hello?
Still says it's on mute. Look at the screen, see?
Asked to unmute.
Hello?
Okay.
It says mute.
But it doesn't say mute for me. That's very strange. Um,
Hmm.
Is there anything on?
Mute participants allow, yeah.
It seems like we can hear her now based on what's.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we've got the volume all the way up.
And I'm not muted.
We
It's
can't hear you.
Huh. Okay, I'm gonna.
Oh, we lost her.
Well,
It
maybe-
should get it correct back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, do you know what she's here for? Well, we might as well, see if she comes back, but while,
Okay,
hi, can we hear you now?
back into the audio.
I just wanted to leave and come back and see if, no?
Now,
Very strange. I don't know what is going on, but it worked. Let's see when I'm unmute. I don't get what's happening. Okay. Test mic. Hello, is this working? Hello. Yeah, it's okay. Well, I messaged them on the chat too.
Okay, she said that she doesn't have any concerns, she's just listening for now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, I'll keep the chat up, so if you wanna write anything,
yeah, if you do have,
Okay.
want to chime in on.
then
Let
you
us
can
know.
just write. Okay, I did see your comments, finally, after we tried to unmute you forever. Great, so our next agenda item is to review and approve the August 14th minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look them over?
Yes, there was some comments about Devon
Yeah,
being spelled correctly.
yes, DIVIN.
DIVIN.
DEVIN.
That's how it is here.
Yes, but in other places it's DE Devon.
Okay. So, Kristen, hopefully we can just make some amendments on that.
And I think there's a deck at the bottom that's talking about needing some substantial damage.
Information about substantial damage and about belonging story shared, she holds legal position, July, but she claimed town inundation regulations. Right? Is it all the properties?
Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm working to reach out on those homeowners. She explained
Yep.
that some homes that were damaged in the flood. Are not located in the special flood hazard area, and she's not, and. It's not that I'm not reaching out to them, it's that. It's not my jurisdiction.
Well, that's what it says. It says as they are not regulated by inundation.
It just, like.
Well, that's what, yeah.
I mean, I just,
Like
if that's what you understands to you guys, that's
Yeah.
fine, it's just.
I understood that you said you couldn't, well, you could reach out to them, but you weren't because they.
They're not in my jurisdiction.
Right.
Okay.
And it
All right,
does
well-
say that, not regulated by the inundation
I
regulations.
just wanted to make sure you guys understood that's what I meant.
Yeah,
Okay,
I did understand that.
I move that we approve them.
Second.
Right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, great. Discussion to set the hearing for Rick Pope and Heather's minor subdivision at 331 Brook Road. The 3 requested variances flood related. You want to speak to that?
well, I just. I put it up.
Yeah, it's under.
So interesting enough, we just discussed this in a way. That what's happened for them, and so I just want you to look at, like, we need to set the hearing. But they want to do a minor subdivision, which in the 5-acre zoning, they want to do 1.42 acres. Because that's the part, like, it's, I mean, they want to put this into the FEMA for buyout and.
I thought they were just putting this lot, this part into,
It's this,
the whole thing?
right, but they have another, it's
Oh,
only this little piece right here,
Oh, so they just want to carve that out, is what you're saying?
right,
and get bought out.
and get bought,
Oh,
and
okay.
they're great,
Oh.
okay? So, but that is one of the things you wanna consider is, we had this conversation earlier. Can you give a variance for lot size in a subdivision? So you might wanna be reading your regulations about that.
Is this, oh, okay, cause this is subdivided, this is the whole parcel, okay, I didn't get that.
And this is 1.42 acres, which is just along the brook
Right,
and the road. And the variance also is like, because there's only 17 feet here, it's supposed to be 50.
Oh, and they can't make it 50?
No, because of
Bridge,
we got the bridge right there.
and that's their property boundary line there?
Well, no.
It's not.
No, they got all this. But the thing is like. This isn't the buyout, and then they're gonna build a house up here somewhere.
Off of Lee Road.
Off of Lee Road. But anyways, it is a concern, they are asking for a variance for that specific reason, and you might wanna read more about your subdivision regulations.
Can you give a variance for a minor subdivision? Why?
For, the lot size,
That doesn't meet minimum lot size.
and this is the brook is right here,
Yeah,
so. Putting it 50 feet over here and getting a little piece over here doesn't make.
Make any sense, so that would be, yeah,
And that's another one of the variances they're asking for.
okay.
we drove out there this afternoon just to see what it looked like.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know my friends tell me I gotta go walk down the Brook Road and check it out.
Can't walk.
You can't go. You have to go all the
All
east
the-
hill and then back,
Yeah, you still kind of rather busy.
yeah, and it's pretty rough.
Yeah, like, I went to see, Ernie Gray's place today, and I can't get to Ernie Gray. At all, but either way.
I don't see what the problem is.
I don't know.
I mean, given the circumstances.
Yes, and it's all, and also this is one of those things which is, flood relief, this is.
Mhm.
this is-
Right.
But there's no state jurisdiction that overrules ours that would allow it.
Wait,
So if we
Say
did
that
it,
last
the
part.
state couldn't say that we did something outside that the state.
No,
did.
I asked the state, I asked Ned, if because it's flood related. Is there some state regulation that would allow this would be okay, and he said that it's our jurisdiction, that there's nothing from the state.
Okay,
But
so it's up to
because the
us.
state doesn't have the limits,
You're right.
we need to.
Well, we should set a hearing
Yeah.
date and we'll read the variance.
Okay, so do we just wanna do it?
Do we wanna do it 2 hearings? No, we wanna do it next month, is it enough time to?
So,
It's
I-
probably 30 days
Okay,
from now.
so I'm sure that we're gonna continue the 24th,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, but-
they need this done sooner, so maybe we could do this one first. And then if we continue the Bean Road one, that would be the second one,
Yeah, definitely, so
okay?
we're looking at October. It's the 9th. Wednesday, the 9th of October is the second Wednesday of the month.
Thank goodness, cause I wanna be on vacation.
So we'll have a hearing, and do we need a site visit first? Or should we just all go over there and check it out?
Night, you're talking about?
That's what I have.
Okay, that's what I-
I think you could you have to drive up East Hill, go down, Gray Road, bang a left at the bottom of Gray Road, and the ends right at
yeah,
their place. And
right.
it's an interesting thing because the buildings weren't substantially damaged per se, but they're just islands. It's,
Well, they're connected to the road, but they're not,
yeah,
there's nothing else there.
well, it's garage is in the island, garage is.
Oh, yeah?
So it's just washed out around, so the deal.
Yeah, if you came down, the bridge is here, right, it goes like this, and so the water just went right around their garage, and the interesting thing is their garage. Had a pit in it. The guy who owned it before. It put this foundation, so you could have a pit on the floor, so they had this huge foundation, so it's like, I don't know, it's like 12 feet high foundation with a garage sitting up with this totally no land around it. It's,
Wow.
I mean, if it hadn't had that foundation for the pit, it would have gone down.
All right, great, so, is it? The zoning administrators,
In this particular situation, in subdivision, it's the DRB or.
it's our job,
To notify the abutters.
so is that something you or
Yeah,
Kristen?
I'll do it,
Okay, you do that, okay, thank you.
I mean, let's count back 20 days from the 9th. What's 20 days by the 9th?
21st would be, let's see. 1,
Except like the
2,
19.
3, either the 17th or 18th next week sometime. the 19th.
That's fine, yeah, I can get it done.
Okay,
Yeah, I can get it.
yeah, today's,
I just have no like
Nine.
besides zoning and municipal amount of.
no,
stuff.
today's the 11th.
Yeah, I can get, yeah, that's fine.
It's about a week.
Yeah,
All right, I started trying to read the town plan. But I haven't gotten any further with the zoning regs that. The town has proposed, working on, so. I do, maybe there's certain things we could choose to look at.
I looked at the subdivision stuff because of the Hope issue.
In the new ones.
Yeah,
proposed
and
ones?
the old one.
And did you see a difference?
Oh, I didn't compare them to the old ones, I
Okay.
just read the
New ones. All right, well,
I looked through all the red lines that are in there, I mean, most of it's flooding stuff, it's like.
yeah, I mean. There's not a lot of, there's smaller house lots in the village and little few other things, but there's, most of it's addition. Language for cannabis, addition language for river corridor, it's more getting up to date on regulations and.
there was a whole bunch of stuff that DRB did with a consultant early on when we first formed the DRB, because we found them. Sometimes contradictory and difficult. I'm sure you guys took all of that information.
Yeah, it's been
A long process.
right, and the state keeps the problem is like the state keeps making new regulations that you need to add in order to meet the blah blah, I'm sorry, blah blah blah, whatever, but. So, we've been putting off river corridor for a long period of time, and now considering, like, everyone's like, you're not supposed to pile your wood in the river corridor, there's all these things you're not supposed to do in the river corridor. And everyone's like, what's, and then of course we have the floods, so now we can all see what happens when you pile things in the river corridor, even though it's not on the map right now. So, this kind of been a wake up call for really regulations around these kind of areas.
So this is the draft zoning regs.
Yeah, but I was looking for the red line version, which I don't have, I have the.
It's on the
It's on the website.
Oh, it's not in this.
website.
All right,
Down. Oh,
yeah,
so many versions.
okay, well, I don't think we need to move on that, but. It doesn't sound like it's really gonna make a difference in anything that we're addressing right now.
I think that you need to. I think you need to review to see how to help with the village situation. Because. That's one of the things that's really hard, is like people didn't want development in the town of Plainfield, so that's why. This step this way. The thing that I had thought about Act 250 is they're doing some new land thing with Act 250. And I don't know how that fits in, but I think when I went to this meeting at Goddard, the guy who was in charge of the Act 250 land mapping. Said that happened to be within the village mapping of Act 250 land use. I think it's
Goddard's called.
no, Goddard is not Goddard is the historic part, but not the
Campus,
those residential buildings,
the dorms.
the dorms. Right, so.
Well, this is again, my frustration with zoning, they don't fit the particulars and uniqueness is what you need is an understanding. What's the guide, what are the vision, what do we want?
Okay.
Which is the town plan, what do we want our village to look like, what do we want our community to look like? And then when somebody has a piece of land and they want to make changes on it, then it has to fit within that. Not certain things like setbacks are important and light and noise ordinances, I think those things are important, but when it comes to like. These kinds of issues, the limits don't always work.
Right, so one of the things that you can do, that East Montpelier's done and Berlin's done, is there's this line somewhere that says. I don't know, but it basically says the DRB can do what.
Do what they want.
I'm not sure we should propose this.
Well, no, but I'm just saying like so the DRB can make, like, if something, right,
Rules.
Right,
To
so-
make rulings, exceptions to the
Except-
rules.
exceptions to the rules, you'd have to look and see what it says.
Well, I think,
And then, you know, then they have a hearing, and if the next door neighbors, one of the things that happened in East Montpelier, Orchard Valley School there, Waldorf. On one side of the road, it's a certain district, on the other side, so the school's on one district, and across the road is a different district, so. They bought one of the houses across the road. But it wasn't zoned to have childcare in it. So the DRB had a hearing, and the people who live next door didn't mind the school across the road, and I mean across the road, but they didn't want a daycare next door. And so because it wasn't allowed use. But the DRB could have made it allowed use, they didn't because the neighbors were opposed to it.
Weird.
not in my backyard.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's all kinds of examples of those kinds of things where.
Well, I think having a hearing and bringing in interested parties when you're making exceptions to rules is vital.
Right, so anyway, so that's another alternative. You know, when you read about how you might wanna change the language, think about, this is another alternative that other towns do, they have.
So we
this.
could make proposals to the planning commission ourselves.
Right.
Okay,
So
so East Montpelier.
those are just other. Honestly, take this on you guys. I didn't say that.
I'm on the town website for the zoning draft from 2017, and it is not, does not have
You
red
want
lines.
22, you want the 22, October 22,
It's in the planning, is it on the
It's on-
planning commission?
it's on the planning commission.
Ah, that's where, what happened. Okay.
That's another, that whole.
All right, we have always seemed to have more than we think, not always, I shouldn't say
I
that,
think they're very important.
I think they are, and that's why we're here. Guess the only thing is just being prepared for our, can we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, prepared for our, hearing being road, and we can discuss at the hearing what the lawyer said, or I could share you were on the chain of emails, did you two get it?
I don't remember
Which
seeing
one?
what the lawyer said.
You
about-
paraphrased it, is that?
I paraphrased it, so I'm wondering, I would like to share his letter because he basically said the state didn't, as I said, I paraphrased it, and then that's when we got the letter from Karen with photos that say no. So we're embroiled in a lot of people who have different positions, and our decision is to well, we need to open a hearing on a variance, and you know, there's so many moving pieces. And I think one thing would be good is if we could get a recording or minutes from the select board meeting from
Okay.
Monday night, or was it? Yeah, because they were just discussing the property specifically, and that might help us have a little
Okay.
more knowledge. So I missed the meeting, but how often, how long, do you know where we can find, is it usually
You just go to YouTube, you can listen to it, and then you go down and you can have it transcribed, and then if you go, then I usually go to the agenda and see when it was on the agenda, and then I try to follow through and find it.
So you can say, well, it was. Right, their meeting started at 6, which was, and then it was probably done at like 6:30 or 6:45 or something like that. I'm just.
I think you're gonna need a gavel. And I think you're gonna have to set the parameters of.
Don't we have one of the files downstairs still?
What, I have it, actually, it's at my house right now, I found it and I have it, I took it out of my purse.
I could bring a bell, we're much nicer than that.
I think you could, I think
So
you
we
should.
should probably make it clear up front, like, you know, who's has the floor and like when,
Yes.
you know, how people get their comments and so people aren't talking on top of each other.
And I think one of the things you might want, and we do this when we're, you know, at my school, is has the person who's chairing the meeting is not the person monitoring the hand raising. Right, so you would assign to someone to sort of to say, oh,
You,
So-
you next, you next,
they
you
do
next.
next, based on, recognized based on their hand raising. And it's very complicated, but it can be done. And I hadn't really thought about it, and we're doing it short time, but the next one, we probably should have at the town hall.
This will
I
be
think
like.
that's gonna be a fun big.
And I think another thing that I think was awesome that he did today that we're not well schooled in is sharing.
Screen sharing.
Screen sharing, so people can be actually looking at the documents, which you would love, because you've been on there and it's like, oh, if I could see the document, it'd be so much easier. So, I mean, I think there's some stuff that, you know, and I don't know.
Well, Kristen's gonna be here to run the Zoom, so.
I mean, one of us could log on and share a screen, then have the documents.
Right, because you can be in here with it on, it's just you have to have it muted so you don't go.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna be here, so that's gonna be up to you.
Yeah,
And Will is gonna substitute. And he's done that before, so.
yeah, and if you just make sure that I have any of the documents that probably, any visuals that you think people would want to see.
Well, the online, I have another questions, do you want me to present, would you like me to add the evidence of? Do we wanna just hear this, or do you you want me to send you all the documents of the violation letter that I've written? You know.
Haven't you already done that?
I and probably over the course of a bunch of, I mean, you probably don't have the violation letter, cause that usually just goes to the.
I think you should bring them here physically and have them in the room, but.
But if you have a whole packet, for those of us who can't be here, it'd be nice to be able to see the whole packet.
You must have scanned them all and put them in the computer, right?
Well,
No.
yes, I'm sure that, well, some can, well, I can figure it out.
Okay.
So you might wanna start creating a digital folder that has it all in it
I
as
mean,
well.
Google Docs, I mean, my Google,
It's all in there.
I feel really bad for the next person to find, you know, zoning administrator, cause my filing is the. You know, you don't, when you first start on this, you don't know how you wanna set up your filing, and the next thing it's like, oh my gosh, it's a disaster.
Here it is.
And then I think that will also be, I think one of the things that'll be brought up at the hearing, is this is what I think what happened on Monday is. They have a notice of violation from the state, from this. From the state for wastewater. And so some people.
They do have a waste.
They have a
violation.
violation with the. Okay, so Ryan McCall, so there's a violation on their septic system. Okay, but it's never been followed through on, okay?
From the
And
state.
So Ryan McCall from
Who's
who's in charge of.
the enforcement
officer.
Okay.
Okay, so that's an open case. And so what's happened is, because it existed before 2007, it's sort of a clean slate. But if a septic system before January 2007 is abandoned for 5 years, then they have to get a new wastewater permit, is what I understand. And I believe that what they were, that Kim and the people that were talking at the other select board, Nolan, she's one of the persons who asked to be on the
Is she in the state?
no, she's in a butter.
Oh, she's in the butt.
And so they're trying to prove that the place was
Has been
abandoned in by showing pictures from 2011, and I can't remember when Melanie moved in there, but it's definitely more than 5, it's more than 5 years.
Yeah.
So the next thing happens is, say, for example, you make it through the whole variance thing, and you guys grant the variance. Well,
I don't think we can grant a variance with all of those outstanding
but you have to understand, in order to correct a violation, you have to, and lots of times you have to apply for a permit to correct the violation.
Permit for what? For the
to
property
Yes.
construction?
build a house.
Okay, say you build, okay, someone puts in another apartment. Right, without getting a permit for it, right? I send them a violation letter. They come, in order to fix that violation, they have to apply for a permit.
That's true.
So,
Like a catch-22.
yes.
Yeah.
So
We've
just
got
because,
it.
so because they have, because someone has 5 violations. That's, to correct the violation, they have to come in and apply for a permit. The next question comes, if and how you provide the variance and what you write into the variance. And you can't prevent someone from building on their property. It's something. Well, but it is, so the next.
So, right, so no, I think
So then
that
they can't-
we have to back up because yes, the lawyer said that he has right to the land because it's his mother's. But he only has his one sibling
Right.
supporting him. We would have to ask him to have both siblings support
Right.
his permit
Or you
before
can't,
we
or
would wanna vote on it.
you would issue conditions. Like sometimes in subdivision, you issue conditions saying that you can't get a building permit here until blah, blah, blah. I mean, you would have, this building permit would not be valid
I just feel
until.
that it's too myopic. It's too myopic to say, oh, we can only look at this little thing, which is a variance to build on this land. When there's all these other outstanding issues.
Right, so the next thing becomes, right,
So I would just say we got an open hearing and we're gonna table the discussion until these issues are resolved.
How long can we continue the hearing?
I'm not gonna be party to this.
I'm just saying that,
No, seriously, how long can you
I
continue?
mean, at some point in time, you'd have to close it because you have all the evidence.
Okay,
I-
that's
we
what I
don't
would
have
say,
the
we
evidence.
don't have enough evidence to rule on a variance. So my thought is we need evidence that it's possible for him to build there with a clear ownership title and a
I
clear
think that-
possibility of a septic system that's permittable. And then you also said there's this idea of the flood inundation loan.
That he can meet that setback.
Okay.
So, but the thing is, even if you granted the variance, okay, then that he can't build there until the septic situation, so.
Oh, sorry, you have to forgive me, cause I built there, I got my variance, oops. You gonna forgive me? You gonna make me tear it down?
But you have to remember, a permit can be issued. But the permit can't be used and can't be built until the wastewater.
Who's gonna stop him, who's gonna enforce that?
Well, but obviously. No one, I mean, obviously, there's not much you can do. Cause all violations and all variances and all permits rely on the person who has got the permit to follow through and. But there, I don't feel that we can say, because Joe. From Idaho or wherever, has not been a necessarily law-abiding citizen. We can't say we don't trust you.
I'm not saying I don't trust him, what I'm saying is that we need enough evidence of ownership and buildable lot before we can. here on a variance, that's what I would say.
I agree with that.
Well, I'm just telling you my vision here.
Oh, yeah, you're very, you want us to give him the variance.
I honestly, if this was not this situation. Right, if we were not talking about. Even if the probate got settled, say we got the probate
Yeah,
settled.
that would
okay?
be important.
And that's important.
Yeah.
But if we were talking about anybody else and any law anywhere else,
It would be the septic system and it would be clear title of ownership. Those were the two issues that would,
right, so you could put in your decision, say, I'm just giving options. You could say that this permit is not valid until your NOVA from such and such, and I'll give you that document, you know.
or we could just deny it based on the grounds that we don't have clear ownership if he can't provide it.
You can.
But I think we
But
need to
then
give him a
even-
chance. I'm not just gonna say you didn't bring it to the hearing, so we're not gonna. I would recommend that he get clear title to the property and work out the septic violation with the state.
Right,
And give him that, so not rule on it until he has a chance to fulfill those. I mean, that seems reasonable to me.
Me too.
I think that's reasonable, I just, is our lawyer does not seem to hold that same thought.
What do you think he says? He said that we should give him the variance.
He didn't say that, he said that
Yes.
they have. That arguing that because the probate hasn't been settled is not a reason why you can't give the variance, is what I.
But he did say he needed all siblings to agree.
Right, so they may come in with that.
Well, that's great. If they do, then that's one piece that seems resolved.
Right, so I'm, you know, like, go forward,
Of course, we are.
but just because it's those particular individuals, I don't want. Like, what's gonna happen?
We're not, it's not about prejudicing the individuals.
Well, that's
I
what
think
you're gonna
it's-
have to manage, that's what you're gonna have to manage.
We'll do our best.
We should have gone into executive session.
You know, well,
It's a little too late for that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, this is a hot topic,
Yeah.
and then people emotions are gonna be high. There's probably gonna be a lot of people.
and we'll do our best in that.
And so I think from your as a chair, I would think if you could find a other person who can keep track of. You know,
Who
who's
wants
raising their
to raise
hands
their
and
hands.
in what order they are, that would be really helpful. And it's good, and it's hard to manage the hand raising between here and there. On the screen.
Oh, I see, yes. Okay, maybe you could.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so that's just, I just know from like having big meetings that's one of the things.
Well,
that-
you know, I think we just need evidence, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
We need evidence to be able to make a decision.
Yeah, and I mean, we should hear everybody out first, but you know, I do think. That makes sense to say, you know, we need either a continuation until you get these things resolved. Because if we're making a decision today, we don't think that we have the information
Right,
we need
exactly.
for grant variance. But yeah, I mean, again, that's. We're not
We'll
making
just,
any
you know,
decision today.
and we don't know what they're gonna bring in,
Exactly.
they might know that they need more proof, and they might live with that.
And I gave them the information to send out the notices, and I don't know whether, you know, I don't know if the notices got sent out. To the letters.
It was their responsibility, so again, that's another piece of being able to hold it here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good source of information, is there any
Will
other?
you share the letter from the lawyer?
Mm-hmm. And I just wanna say, Kristen, you don't have to give details of the entire conversation, you just said that we were talking about the 79 Bean Road upcoming hearing and making sure that we were all, had the necessary information that we knew how we were gonna proceed. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll take any, is there any other business we wanna discuss?
I don't have any.
All right, and hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank
Aye.
you very much, everybody.
The video of the select board meeting is up.
Great, I'll try to find just the time to look at that.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks.
both of you, and it'd be great if we had a member or two, right?
Yes, it would be good. I'm just gonna end that.
Yeah.
Maybe